Hello.
Yeah, hi Purushottam. We would be starting the session soon. We're
Yes,
expecting
sir.
more people and then we'll start up, right?
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So, good evening, by the way. How are you people? Hi, I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Fine, sir. How are you, sir?
All right. I'm great as well. All right. Uh, we most probably would be waiting for 5 more minutes. We might be expecting few more people. Then we're gonna start up, right? Will that work? Will that work? Okay, great. All right. Uh, all right. So before we actually go around and start for anything, uh, first of all, welcome to Technology for All, right? This would be the foundational courses that we have launched for you people, right? Wherein we'll be talking about the very extensively about various of the technologies. There would be three courses that we have launched as of now, right? And this would be completely like free. Mhm. And we'll be covering out a number of technologies on the same, right? Um, Before we actually go around and do anything, I would highly recommend you go to our LinkedIn page, right? You can go around and follow us. The reason is that we'd be covering out a lot of other foundational courses as well over the upcoming time, right? And you would be completely updated depending upon when would that foundational courses is going to be launched. I hope I'm making sense, right? You can go around, you can check up on our page. I've shared up the link in the chat section, right? You can go there, follow us, right? And for any updates, you can go updated, right? And if there would be any in future, it would be any, definitely it's going to be, right? So in future, if there is going to be any of the foundational courses that we'll be launching up, you will be updated. I hope this makes sense. Yeah. Okay, we good. Do it once you're ready. Once you're done, give me a yes in the chat section, and then we'll move ahead and start talking about other things. Do it. Do it. Take your time. right? And once you're done, just give me a yes. We'll move ahead and start talking about other things. Do it, and then we'll move ahead. Once you're done, just write yes in the chat section, so that I could know that you guys are all ready, and then we'll start discussing about other things. Quick. See, we should not waste time because I have a lot of things that most probably I'll be going around and covering out in this course, right? So if you could make it a little hurry, we'll introduce up with the course. I'll be setting up your expectations, and then we'll move ahead and start discussing things quickly. Other people, once you're done, just give me a yes. That will like be completely fine. Once you're done, just give me a yes in the chat section. Quick, other people. Guys, I hope I'm audible to everybody. Okay, all right. So, shall we move ahead? आगे चल सकते हैं? Shall we move ahead? Quickly, be a little responsive because I literally would be needing this session to be a two-way conversation. The reason is because if you'd be stuck anywhere, I would have literally no idea where you're stuck, right? You can go around and ask your doubts if you'd be having any. So if you're ready, we can start on with the course, shall we? Before we actually go around and start discussing onto the course, there are a few things that I'd be making a highlight to. The things is that this is the course that would be completely based on HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap, right? It would be completely based on front end. The next course that we'd be having, that would be completely based on JavaScript, right? We'll be learning a lot of JavaScript. The dates of the course would be posted up here on LinkedIn. So I'll highly recommend you go around and follow us up on LinkedIn so that you get updated, right? Additional follow-ups would be done for you people as well, right? You will get all the messages and all the roundups that are necessary that would be done from our end, right? And the reason we are launching this course, first of all, I'd like to set up your expectations before I go around and start with the course and start learning, right? So the point here of this foundational course is going to be like the mail already exists. Didn't get your question. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. That's completely fine. The mail is already existing. What mail?
Sir, sir, I am updating that mail, sir. The details in the mail.
Okay. All right. That's great. That's
Doing,
great. Yeah. So just in case for the people who have just joined, this would be the link. We'll highly recommend you go around and follow us up so that you get updated, right?
okay,
Now
sir.
I'll just set up the expectations, right? The reason we are coming up with this foundational course is because we are a venture, a startup, which are run by two people, right? Me and my friend Kanav, right? The reason we are coming up with this because we have been working with a lot and lot of different startup companies like Upgrad, Simply Learn, and a lot of different tech companies. What we have found is that a lot of people, just because of the price range, does not go around and learn technologies, right? And being India as the upcoming emerging technology hub, we'd highly encourage our teenagers and students to actually go around and learn technology. That is why it's called Technology for All, right? We are coming up with a lot of courses, right, that would be giving you a command on a lot of different things. That is one of the reasons we had a vision of connecting up with you people and showcasing you that how things are done in the industry, what you people are lagging, what generally happens, and the wholesome idea of the technology that you would be getting, right? You'll get an overview that how the teachings are done, how the courses are going to run, and every of the other minute excruciating details that would be done in the session itself, right? And the main point that I want to focus up is that we believe in imparting the best quality of the education, best quality of the content at very affordable price. That is why we call this as technology for all, right? If you'd be having any queries regarding any of the things that you want to ask related to the course, related to the company, related to anything for that matter, we'll cater those questions at the end of the session, right? So shall we start? Shall we start? If you're ready, I'm ready. We can go around, start discussing on. Okay, before I actually start talking about and doing a lot of codes and stuff, how many of you are familiar with front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap? Be honest, be honest. Because I'm expecting in my head that you're completely noob to this technology, right? So how many of you have done HTML, CSS, or Bootstrap? Somewhat, okay. Other people? Others? Okay. Okay. All right. Great. Now, okay, let's go ahead and discuss about few things, right? The course that we are going to have a look on in today's session is going to be completely based on front-end technologies, right? And specifically for today's session, we are going to have a look on HTML in very detail, right? There are few things that you might have learned. There are few things that most probably you might not have learned, you might not have seen, that we're going to cover out in this session. Again, this is going to be a very capsule kind of like a course that would be going around with HTML, right? I'll be walking you around through complete HTML. Just in case, one thing in my session, just in case if you feel any doubt anywhere, don't get hesitant, right? Stop me anywhere. I'll be more than happy to answer up your doubts. And don't feel shy in asking up your doubts. Stop me anywhere in the session and you can ask up your doubts. You can raise up your hand, you can ask up your doubts. Completely fine with me. Right. All right then. So let's start discussing on what HTML is, what are we going to do, and what you will be learning out of this course. So we, as in the technology that we'll be learning, is completely based on frontend, and the technology that we'll be catering on is going to be HTML, which shorts for hypertext markup language. What is this HTML? We'll talk about it, but let's go around and talk about what would be the prerequisites before we actually go around and learn HTML as a technology, right? First of all, what you would be needing is nothing but a text editor, right? Any of the text editor. Before I actually go around and tell you what my preferences are going to be, let's just talk about that you can use any of the text editor for that matter. If you're working on Windows, so you can opt for Notepad. And if you're working on Mac or Linux, or you can use any of the text editors by any of the default text editors for that matter, right? No prerequisites on text editors. But the next point here is the text editor that I'll be using is going to be completely different. The reason is, yeah, I know, because I am not showing you anything as of now, right? So when I'll be doing stuff, you would be seeing everything, right? This is just the text stuff. Don't worry, right? So the text editor point here for me, it's going to be, I'll be using VS Code. Again, you are completely free to go around and use any of the text editor that you want. You can use Atom, you can use Sublime, you can use Notepad, you can use any of the text editor for that matter. What I'll be highly recommending you people is going to use VS Code. This is called as Visual Studio Code. This is by Microsoft, right? This is one of the best text editors that you can use in order if you want to create, go around and do any of the things on front-end frameworks, right? It could be Angular, Vue, React, anything that you want for front-end technologies. VS Code is the go-to, right? So VS Code, this is how the text editor is going to look like. I most probably would be having few things already opened up in here, but don't worry. So I'm just going to go around and open up to a very blank slate, right? I have a folder which is already created on my desktop, TFA, right? I'm just going to open this out. All right. So this is how the text editor is going to look like, right? Why do I prefer this text editor? We'll talk about that in a little second, right? But this is how the text editor is going to look like. Here you would have a window, the Explorer, the file Explorer. For whatever files that you'll be creating, you're going to find this file out here, right? So this is the folder that we have, that is TFA, and we'll be talking about HTML, right? So any doubts as of now? If you have any doubts, put that doubt in the chat section. If you're good till here, just give me a yes. We'll move ahead quickly. And if I'll be moving a little fast, do let me know. I'll slow down up, right? Because we have a very limited time and a lot of things to cover out. So I'm willing not to waste any time for this. No doubts? We good? If you're good, just give me a quick yes. Others, just a quick yes or no doubts or anything, just a mere confirmation from your end. All right, great. Okay. Now let's start talking about what HTML is and why are we using HTML as a technology? What is the use, right? We'll be talking about what the use is going to be. The use is very, very simple, right? What do we want? We want to create a full-fledged web application, right? Or let's take it on a very simpler note. We want to go around and create a website for that matter, right? We are interested in creating up websites. Now, let's take it on a very example that if you want to go around and create, let's say, document for any of the things that you want to go around and write the text on, what is the go-to? You either go to Microsoft Word, you go around and write whatever words that or whatever text that you want to write, and boom, it's done, right? Similar is the case. You could also go around and do the same things on Google Docs, maybe, right? What is our requirement? Our requirement is to create a website. Now, in order to go around and create a website, you have to learn a technology which is called as HTML. HTML short for hypertext markup language, right? And this is not a programming language. Keep that in mind. A lot of people have a lot of notions that this is a programming language. It's not a programming language. It's a scripting language out of which you go around and create the structure. I'll give you the wholesome part in a little second. But the whole idea is going to be that we need to go around and design the layout of the web page, right? That is the whole idea. Okay. For that, what I'm going to do is in the folder, that would be great. Like if you could keep your mics on mute, right? So that we do not go around and engage ourselves on any of the other things, right? So this is the folder that I've opened as of now, which is Technology for All TFA. And inside this, I'm going to go around and create a file and I'm just going to call this index. Now, keep that in mind. It's not any other file, right? It's a, just one second. Now, unlike any of the other things that we do, right? So what do we do? If let's suppose if we are creating up a document, what do? We either call this as index.txt. TFA is a folder. Yeah, this is a folder which is in my desktop. If you could see out here, this is a folder TFA that I've opened up on VS Code. That's all. That's all that I've done, right? And we are discussing that we want to go around and create something of technology, or we want to use a language which would help us out to design up a web page, right? So just TFA is just a folder. And what I'm going to do is create a file in here which would help us to give us the markup for any of the files that we'll be creating, right? Keep that in mind. This is a very capsule thing. We'd be covering out different things at a very limited time, right? So I'm not going to go around with a very excruciating details. Most probably I'll try to cover it out, and might be a situation this session might even get a little longer. So I hope you won't have any doubts, any problems with the same, right? Now, the point is what we'll be discussing. We were saying that we need to create a web page. For that, of course, we'd be needing a file. It's exactly like if you want to go around and create a document, what do? You create a document. How? By creating up a file and giving it an extension called as either docx, docs, or either you just call this as .txt, right? Either of the things would do good to you. In the same way, if you want to go around and create a web page, there is an extension called as .html. So any of the things that you would be creating, and if you mark this extension as .html, your computer would know that you are trying to create something of a web page. That's it. That's it. That you all you actually need to know, right? So this is how you'd be creating up an HTML document. That's it, right? Now the point here arises. The point here arises. Why have I called this file as index.html? Anybody from the session who would like to give a contribution on the same? Why have I kept this file's name as index.html? Anybody? Anybody? Why have I kept the name of the file as index.html and not any other options available? I could have kept
I know that problem. It was
no, that's not the case. That's not the case. Not that. Not. You're somewhat right, but not exactly. Any other ones? If you know, just give me the answer. If you don't, just give me a no. We'll not waste time. Yeah, why have I named this file as index.html and not something else? I could have named this file pretty much anything that I would have wanted. Maybe I would have started with tfa.html or maybe something in any, or maybe my name for that matter. Why do I typically call this index.html? Anyone? Great. As Komal said, this is going to be the very first file that we'll be creating. This will be the very first file we'll be creating. Now keep that in mind. Every time, this is not a notion. This is not a rule. This is not something that you have to do. Otherwise, your application is not going to work. It's not the case. You can do it. But why do we call this index.html? Because this is a tradition, you can call this, right? This is a standard that has been set in the industry. Why? Because you might, even if you'll go around and realize that even if you go to amazon.in, what happens? There is a home page that loads for the very first time. Yeah. Yeah. There are different sections for the applications. Yeah, that's true. But there is a main file or a main page that you see every time you go around and log in onto any of the applications, Amazon, Flipkart, Netflix, anything for that matter. This is the go-to file. This is the main page. This is the home page of the application, right? This means that I am about to create the root file, the first file, and always in any of the applications, the go-to file is always going to be index.html. So keep that in mind, right? So that is why I've just called this as index.html. All right. Now, okay. Now what am I going to do? I would be now doing something like, let's write certain text. Let's say hello world. Let's say hello world. I'm going to save this. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to this folder and I'm just going to right click on this. I'm just going to say open with, let's say Google Chrome, right? And if you'll see, you could see something of the text being rendered out here. Everyone can see this. There is a text. There is a very normal text. I have not done anything. If you'll just see, I have not done anything, right? Rather, the only thing that I've done is just created up a file. I've just called this as any of the file .html. And even if I write just plain text, you could say that a web page is getting created, which is opening on Chrome, right? And some text is getting rendered, right? Just whatever I've written, just as a normal text, this is getting rendered. Pretty cool stuff, right? But if you will actually will have a look on the text that you're gonna see out here, this is just mere plain text. This is nothing else. This is just mere plain text, nothing else, right? Now let's talk about what is the use or what is the utility. So zoom the screen, the browser screen or the screen where I'm writing the code. Which screen are you talking about? This seems fine, Weber. This seems fine. Code part, okay. So I'm just gonna, or rather what I can do is I can work with something like this. Does this seem fine? Seems fine. Okay, great. All right. Now let's start to talk about what the utility of as an HTML is going to be. Let's talk about the utility part. Now, the reason we are using HTML as a technology is that we are about to create a web page. But the web page, we could pretty much can contain anything that we want and we could see that it's getting rendered. So why do we need HTML as a technology? The reason is that every of the web page that you will be creating or any of the application that you will be creating for that matter should have a good structure. Why am I calling that every web page should have a good structure? The reason is that every web page should follow a convention of creating structure so that any of the operations, when we'll come back to CSS and JavaScript, this will start to make sense. But yeah, even if I don't put any tags, just write hello world, that will also get rendered, Piyush, right? This is just mere plain text. This is what I'm saying. See, try and understand. Your HTML as a file is intelligent enough, right? And this is just going to pick up the text that you are having and automatically is going to go around and put it inside the body. If you'll actually go around and inspect this page, if I'll go to more tools and go to developers tool, and if you'll try to inspect this page, you'll see if you go to elements, this will automatically include it in the body. It's intelligent enough. Your HTML is intelligent enough to do this, right? But this is not a conventional way of doing the same. Even if I don't write any tags, it will still get rendered, but keep that in mind. It's just mere plain text, nothing else, right? You are not creating any structures. So that is why HTML came into picture, saying, hey, if you want to go around and create something of a web page, what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you how you are going to design the structure of the web page. I hope the utility of the technology as HTML starts to make sense over here. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Right? That why are we using HTML? If you're good, just give me a yes. Yeah. So we do not want to go around just print whatever text that we are writing in the file. Rather, we want to go around and structure it. Why do we want to structure it? We'll come back to this in tomorrow's session when we'll start using CSS. This will start to make sense, right? But as of now, we need to structure the web page, right? For more utilities like styling and giving the functionalities and stuff like that. Pretty cool stuff. Now, giving structures would be needing or requiring the technology as HTML. And keep that in mind, very, very important. HTML has been in the market for a really long time, right? And it has gone through a lot of changes. It has progressed onto a lot of changes, and it has came out to be on a very different versions. The latest versions of the HTML that we use in today's world is called as HTML5, right? There has been previous versions as well for HTML, but what we use is called as HTML5, right? And in order to tell our document, or in order to tell our HTML file that we will be working on HTML5, we need to create a doc type, right? So how do we create that doc type? We mention up a tag. We just call this exclamation, and we just write doc type. And the moment I write this, my browser would know that the HTML version that I'm going to use in this case is going to be HTML5, not any of the other HTML versions, right? This is how you're just telling that the doc type is going to tell you that this document is going to be HTML5 enabled doc type, right? Or HTML5 enabled document. Rather, everything remains same. Now, what do we want to do? If you want to go around and create a web page, we would have to get what you call this as a container inside which we'll be keeping all the code and all the things that we need to render in the document, right? So this comes out very handy within three elements, or we should call this tags. Could have been much faster. Didn't get you. You mean to say that I'm going a little slow? Should I speed things up? If you know all of these things already, we can speed things up. Shall we? How many of you say that we actually need to speed things up? Shall we? Okay, cool, great. So what I'm gonna do, I am just gonna create the boilerplate code for you people then, right? So I hope everybody is okay till here. If I skip this part, I hope nobody would be having any doubts. Can I skip this part? Other people, don't feel embarrassed just because other people are saying. For the people who actually want to know all of these things, we can talk about it. Okay, I'll just give you a very basic overview. Now, this is how the HTML document looks like. This is the boilerplate, how the HTML document is going to look like. So I'm just going to go through and give you an overview. This would be telling you that the document that you will be creating is going to be the HTML5 enabled document. Then inside this, what you see is something called as HTML, right? This is the HTML tag. This HTML tag says, or this means that whatever we'll be creating now from now onwards, it's going to be a part of this HTML. So the moment you write the opening tag, this is called as opening tag, and a closing tag, and anything which falls within this document is going to be in between of the opening and the closing tag. So you could see that this is the closing tag and this is the opening tag, and anything that you want to render onto your document is going to be in between of the opening and closing tag of HTML, right? So this HTML is basically denoting your whole of the document, right? Next thing, as you could see, is the another tag, which you call this, which also has a opening and a closing tag, which is called as head. What is this head going to do for you? This head would be containing all the metadata related to your document. What do you mean by metadata? Metadata means any of the data which is related to your document. That means either if this file is linked to another file, that could be a metadata, or maybe what would be the, what do you call this as, what is going to be the title of the web page or title of the page. In this case, it's right now it's called as index.html. What would be the title of the document? That also is going to be mentioned up in the head section only. So let's go around and call this foundation course on HTML itself, right? Save, refresh. So now here you would see that foundation course on HTML, the title part has been updated. Yeah, correct. That's what I said. If you want to go around and link this document to any other document, that is also going to be a part of your head tag itself, right? You know what? Rather than actually going around and serving this application, would you mind if I use live server? Would you mind if I use live server? Because I'll have to save this and keep on reloading the page. Will that be okay if I'd be using live server? Right? For the people who have no idea about live server and stuff like that. So what you can do is just go out here on the files, right? Just right click on the live server, but make sure you have already enabled the extension called as live server out here. So if you go to live server, you could see that I already have this live server enabled, right? So I can go around and serve this application on the live server. The reason I'm using the live server is going to be, I'm just going to go to localhost 5500 / index.html, right? Great. Chalo, let's move ahead then. Nice. So everything that I'll be doing, even if I just write anything out here, just let's say hello. I just write hello out here, just save this will get rendered automatically. I do not need to reload the page over and over again. This is the utility of live server for the people who have no idea about what live server is, right? All right, great. Now we'll come back to this head part at the end of the session, because there are a lot of things that goes into this, which means what the character set is, what do you mean by UTF-8, what is viewport, how everything happens and stuff like that. We'll come back to this at the end of the session, right? But the only thing that you need to keep in mind that the head part is always going to contain all the metadata. What is a metadata? Metadata means any of the data that you want to mention before you actually go around and render up your application. So metadata means data which is related to your document. That is called as metadata. For example, like title, link, all of these things are called as metadata. So metadata to the document, right? Now, before I actually go around and do something, I would like to recommend you to know something which is called as comments. Comments means something which is not going to be read by your browser when you actually go around and serve the application, right? And how do we do this? We do it by something like this. We put a less than sign, then we put an exclamation, 2 hyphens, and whatever you want to comment this out, you write it in between, and then you put 2 hyphens and the greater than symbol. This is how you put a comment. If you're working on VS Code, whatever you'll be selecting and doing control /, that would give you a comment, right? So this is how we mention the comment. What is a comment? A comment is a part of the document which will definitely not get rendered, right? So if I save this, you'd see I do not get any errors or nothing gets rendered onto the page. Great. Yeah, you'll get the recording sessions. Don't worry. You'll get the recording sessions, right? Don't worry about that. Mohammed, I'm expecting every of my students to be on a very same level. So I'm expecting there are few people in the session as well who are very new to HTML, right? Anyone who is very new to HTML? So that I could know that there do exist few people who are very new to HTML. Quickly. Yeah, so I see a lot of people raising hands. So I do not want them to feel, lonely and stuff. I don't know what's happening and stuff like that, right? So yeah, great, got it. Now, let's come to the body part. What do you mean by what is called as body? Yeah. Now, body is a part. Abhi filhal ke liye, just forget what head is. We'll come back to this head at the end of the session. I am going to tell you what the metadata of the document actually means, right? But whatever you want to render onto your document will be inside this tag or inside the element, which is the body element. Now try and understand, we use a term very frequently interchangeably, which is called as element and tag. Let's talk about that. What is the difference between an element and a tag? A tag can be of 2 types. Either a tag could be an opening tag. For example, this is an opening tag of head, or we can call this a closing tag of head. Tag means when you are talking individually about a opening tag or a closing tag. Then there comes another existence, which you call this a HTML element. HTML element means the collection of the opening and closing tag. That means I can say that this opening tag and closing tag of the head combines to make something called as a head element, right? Similarly, you could see that this is a body element, which combines the opening tag of body and the closing tag of body. And anything that you want to render onto your document would be contained inside the body element of the document, right? So let's go around and do something, right? So let's not waste time and let's start to look onto any tags. Now, what do we do when we talk about HTML? Anything that you want to render, you would use tags in order to render that into your document. And why, you ask? Because we want, as we have talked about the problem statement, the problem statement is that we need to create the structure of the application. We want to create the structure of the web page that we are creating. Yeah, we'll give you the recordings. Don't worry, Komal. We'll give you the recordings. Okay? You'll get the recordings. Don't worry. Don't worry about the recordings. Worry about the learning part. Okay? You'll get the recordings. Don't worry. Now, we need to define up a structure, right? We need to define up a structure. We need to render something onto the document. For that, as I said, whatever we'd be doing it inside the body tag. So how are we going to do that? Let's talk about few of the basic elements, right? So let's go to some basic elements of HTML, right? Let's start with a very basic HTML element, which you call this as headings. Let's go around and talk about headings. Now, let's say if you're creating a document, what you'd be needing, first of all, it's going to be the heading of the document, of course, right? So every time you'd be creating, even if you go around and create notes, even if you're sitting in the class and somebody is teaching you something, what do? You first of all put up the heading so that you can get an idea that what I'm learning about, right? Same is the case with the pages as well, right? When you go around and create up a page, what do? You first go around and create the headings. In order to go around and create headings, there is a tag which is called as h1. And this h1 also comes with an opening tag and a closing tag, as you can see. And any of the things that you want to write as a heading, you're going to write in between of the opening and closing tag. Let's say, welcome to Technology for All, right? And now if I save this, you'd see that there would be a heading that would be rendered onto your document, which says, welcome to the Technology for All, right? So yeah. Now this heading comes onto with very different variations. Now, if I go around and copy this out and paste it in multiple other times, you'll figure out that there are multiple versions of the headings as well, right? H3, H4, H5, H6, right? And similarly in the closing tag, H5, H4, H3, and H2. And if I save this, you'd see the variations in the heading, right? If you'll notice the number of the heading, if let's suppose if I'm talking about H1 has a smaller number of heading. That means it's the first heading, and the number, the smaller would be the number of the heading, the larger would be the text, right? Smaller would be the number of the heading, larger would be the text. As you can see, then as the number increases, the size of the heading decreases, right? H1 to H6, not H7, H6, right? And depending upon what the number is going to be, higher would be the number, smaller would be the text, right? And there exist 6 headings for the same, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to comment this out. And at the time when I'll be posting up on GitHub and when you'll sit around and try to learn, I hope this will start to make sense, right? So this is the heading part. How do we use heading? By using something called as heading element in the HTML, which ranges from H1 to H6. Yeah, there is no H7. That's what I said. It only ranges from H1 to H6, right? And lower would be the value of the heading, higher would be the text font, right? This is how it goes like. Great. Let's talk about one other element as well, which is called as paragraph element, right? So let's go about and talk about a paragraph element. Now, I'd highly recommend that whatever you're doing, you leave it for a little second, because this will eventually start to make sense when we'll be doing CSS for tomorrow's class. I'll come back to this for a little second, but just have a look on this paragraph text, right? Paragraph is exactly the same as we have discussed. It would have a opening tag and also would have container closing tag, and anything that you would be writing in between will be considered as a paragraph for that matter, right? So in VS Code, if you want to go around and provide any dummy text, what you can do is write lorem, and whatever number of the words that you would be needing, you can just write it. You can just call this 24 and just put tab. So you'd see what will happen is that it will, yeah, it's called as lorem ipsum, IPSUM, right? So it's called as lorem ipsum, and it just gives you a little dummy text, right? This text doesn't make any sense, but just have a look on this paragraph for a little second. If you'll just have a look on the paragraph, I would like to draw your concern towards few certain things. First thing, the moment you wrote your heading, there was few of the things which were left behind. It was a kind of like a space that was left behind in between of the paragraph and the heading. Why is it so? The reason is that when you use paragraph, a paragraph definitely contains what? Few certain line of block of things that you want to go around and render onto your document for sure. But the ultimate thing that we use the paragraph is that paragraphs works individually as blocks. And that is why these are called as block level elements, right? iPhone sir, just give me 1 second. We are covering out from the basic. We'll come back to header. Header is completely different. This is heading, not header, right? So get the difference. What I've done is a heading. What you're talking about is header. We'll come back to header. Don't worry. I'll give you a wholesome idea. Don't worry. Everything would be covered out, right? Stay patient, right? Now in here, if you could see out here that whatever paragraph that I've made, I would like to draw your concerns toward about onto few things. If I'll actually go around and inspect this page for a little second, right? And if I inspect this paragraph, just see if you could see a yellow colored line at the top and at the bottom of this paragraph. Can you see that? Can you see that? If I inspect this paragraph, whatever text that I'm writing, along with the text, there is few of the things which is left behind on the top of the paragraph, and there are few of the spaces which are also left behind at the bottom of the paragraph. This is why it's called as block level elements. Now listen to me very carefully. There are typically a number n other types of elements as well, but generally 90 to 95% of the time we only consider two types of elements in HTML. What are these two types of elements? One is called as block level elements, and the another one is called as inline elements. What are inline elements? We'll talk about that in a little second, right? But this is definitely block level elements. What do you mean by block level elements? Any element that contain its own size and its own width and its own space, it's called as a block level element. What do you mean by that? What do I mean to say? If I actually go around and create a new paragraph, just see how this paragraph is going to work, right? If I go around and create a new paragraph and again create a lorem 10, let's say, and save this, you'd see that this is not intervening the already existing paragraph. This is coming from a new line, and it's not starting. This could have been starting from here as well, but it's not. Why? Because we are working on paragraphs. Keep that in mind. This is why paragraphs are called as block level elements, right? Most probably by 6:30, but if something would be left off, I most probably will have to stretch the session for a little bit. I hope you wouldn't mind, Mohammed, right? If you'd be in a hurry, you can leave the session. For the people who want to stay, you can stay. We can continue on to the session, right? We started on the session on a very late note because something mishappened in between and stuff like that, right? Okay. So I hope what a block level element is, you got an idea about what a block level element is. A element or a tag which does not takes any other spaces or any other element spaces, rather starts from a new line and does this exactly the same way. If you're good, just give me a yes. I hope the paragraph makes sense to everybody. Does the paragraph make sense? Right? Now, if I ask you a very simple question from you people, what kind of element is a heading then? Is a heading a block level element or a heading is an inline element? What do you think? What do you think? That heading is going to be a block? Very good, Mohammed. No, it's not going to be inline. It's going to be a block level element. If you remember, even if I go around and uncomment this, if I go around and uncomment this and go around and render this, you'll see every of the new heading is starting from a new line. It's not taking the previous space, which is even left behind. You could see that there is a lot of spaces, right? even this heading could have, taken up the space. That would have been completely fine. Just because headings are block level elements, it's always going to start from a new line, right? So keep that in mind. Heading is a block level element, right? Great. All right, so I'm just again going to go around and comment this out. Great. Chalo. Now let's come to the inline elements, right? There are few inline elements which I highly would like to talk about. Or let's not talk about inline elements. Let's go around on to self-closing tags first, right? Let's suppose you might have seen that any of the tags that you're using or any of the HTML elements that you're using as of now, or whatever things that you have seen as of now. Yeah, we have not talked about break tags, but just give me 1 second. I'll come back to this question for a little second. Yeah, it internally uses a break tag. Yes, it internally uses a break tag in which it resumes the next thing from a new line. It internally uses break tag, but in turn, a paragraph is a block level element which enables the next thing to be rendered, which has to start from the new line, right? Now, let's say you would be keeping in a head, for the people who are working on the HTML for the very first time, you might have observed that everything that we are doing does contain something called as an opening tag and a closing tag, and whatever we want to render, we go around and keep in the middle of the opening and closing tag, right? But this is not the case with all the other elements, right? All the elements in the HTML are not exactly the same way. There are few of the self-closing tags also which do exist in the HTML. For example, a very best example that I could give you is called as something called as horizontal rule. Horizontal rule, which is sometimes also called as HR, right? So what this HR is going to do, it's just going to create a rule for you, right? A ruler for you. And in this ruler, it's just going to draw a horizontal line. So if I save this, you'll see a horizontal line being displayed onto your document. Can you see this? Right? This is called as horizontal rule, right? This horizontal rule just gives you a horizontal line being displayed out there, right? This is called as self-closing or self-ending tags, right? These are called as self-ending or self-closing tags. There is another self-ending or self-closing tag, which we'll come back to in a little second, or I should say that I should, go around and give it to you. If let's suppose if I actually go around and create another paragraph, and let's say I call this lorem 20 for this and save this, you'd see that this is the next paragraph that we have created. It's already coming onto a new line. Let's say we wanted a little more space in between of paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. So what we could do is something called as break tag. So in the break tag, what you could do, you can just come here and say break tag, and this break tag would just provide spaces, right? So if I go around and copy this out and paste it multiple other times, you'll see that the spacing would be done in between of paragraph 2 and paragraph 3, right? So BR is also a self-closing tag. It's exactly like HR, which itself is also a self-closing tag, right? So we good till here? Are we good till here? I hope I'm not moving fast. Are we good till here? Other people? I'm asking it to everybody. Even if you're feeling stuck anywhere, don't feel shy, because this session is for you people, right? All right, great. Chalo, great. So for that matter, I'm just gonna get rid of this break for a little second, and we'll include this break somewhere else in the document. Chalo. All right. Yeah, one more thing. Let me talk to you about one of the other very important things that I've generally seen. If let's suppose I want to go around and create a paragraph, let's say, and in here I just want to tell you that the chemical formula for water is क्या होता है? I am little weak in chemistry and stuff like that. So what is the chemical formula for water? H2O. I believe a lot of people would be knowing about that. Now, in the case when you write something like in the chemistry, right? So the 2 actually belongs to the lower end of the hydrogen, right? Right? So you write H and then you put the 2 at the bottom down of your hydrogen element, right? So that's how you do it. If let's suppose this is the case when you want to render the exact same thing onto your HTML document as well, there is a tag for the same which you call this as superscript. Have you heard about superscript? Yeah, great. So how do we do that? Whatever you want to keep in between or into a little downside of any of the words, you can use something called as superscript. So you can just come here and say H2O, but this 2 should be at the bottom. So what do? You wrap this 2 in between of something called as SUP, right? And you put this 2 in between of the opening and closing tags of this superscript. If you save this, you'll see H2O being rendered something like this. Or I should call this subscript rather than calling this as superscript. Let's call this subscript. Subscript, right? Save, you'll see 2 being depicted down at the bottom, right? Similarly, you could just come here and ask a question for that matter. You could say, what is, let's say, 3 raised to the power 2, right? So you would have written something like this, but I'm just going to write it something like SUP, and I'm just going to take this 2, cut it, and put it in between of these opening and closing tags. So you could just come here and say, what is the what do you call this as 3 square or something like that, right? So you can just go around and put an answer out there, right? Makes sense. So in the case when you want to put something at the down bottom at some other things, so you're just going to use sub. This is called as subscript, and this is called as superscript, which means if you want to put any of the other things at the top of some other things, then you can just go around and use superscript. Great. So let's create this just to tell you that these are few things that we have covered. Great. Seems interesting, right? Great. So subscript and superscript. All right. Chalo, kuch और discussion करते हैं, because a lot of people are really curious to think about that. How are you going to do a lot of different things? All right, coming back. Chalo. Before I actually go around and talk about few things, let's go to OneNote and try and understand what we are trying to discuss in just a little second, right? Have you actually gone around and seen a few of the applications? And if you have not, I'm just going to make you go through a few of the applications then, right? Let's go to Amazon.in for a little second. Just have a look on this Amazon. Just have a look on how this Amazon has been created. Right? Now let's go to Geeks for Geeks for a little second. Just have a look on this web page. Let's say I go to algorithms part. Just have a look on this web page and observe it very carefully, because this is the new thing that we are about to cover out. If you try to see, how this typical page has been structured, you would try and observe that any of the web pages or any of the web applications that you use in today's world, maybe it could be Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, anything for that matter, whatever you're doing, any of the web pages would have a very static kind of like a page view. And what is that it's going to look like? Let's talk about that for a little second, right? What happens is that if you talk about a web page, right? So if I go to draw, if you talk about a web page, right? Let's talk about a web page. Let's suppose this is a web page. A web page contains of 4 different sections, right? I should call this 3 sections, but nowadays it's more of a 4 sections, right? Because everybody wants to earn money. So what are these 4 sections? These 4 sections basically divide itself to these 4 things. There would be something called as, what is this? Can somebody tell me? This is header / navigation bar. Then there would be a footer wherein you would be writing all the credentials or all the copyrights mentions that you would be having. Then there would be a typical of a sidebar. And then there would be containing up something called as the main part of your application, wherein every of the content that you'd be showcasing, that content would be showcased in this way, right? Generally, nowadays, people have started using the sidebar for ads. Initially, it used to be way earlier. It used to be for table of contents. Table of content. For whatever table of content that you're presenting onto your document. It could be either for table of content, right? We call this as a sidebar. Nowadays, people have started showcasing less of the document, and they have actually started creating another sidebar just for ads. If you'll have a look on this Geeks for Geeks as an application, you'd realize that, yeah, this have actually started of a trend. right? So just have a look on this Geeks for Geeks wala application. So they have a table of content out here in the left hand side, and also they have a right hand side kind of like a sidebar out of which they are just going to showcase you ads, just ads. And in between, as you can see, just right now, just ad popped up, right? So at the right hand side, you could see that there are a lot of ads, and in between, whatever is left, it's just for the content part. And if you'll scroll down, come at the down at the bottom, you'll find out that this is the footer part, and at the top, you'll find out that there is a header and there is a navigation bar attached to with the same, right? So this is the basic layout. If you talk about the basic layout, this is how your basic layout is going to look like for any of the web pages, right? You can go around, you can search for any of the other web applications as well, and you'll try to figure out that, more or less the same story is the same, right? A header, a footer, a navigation bar, a sidebar, and a main part. Now the point here arises that how are we going to go around and create this, right? So for that, you should be knowing how you're going to format up your page. So let's talk about that. How are we going to format up the page? Initially, when we used to work on earlier versions of HTML, we typically used to go around and create this using paragraphs and divs. We'll talk about divs in a little second. But earlier, when we didn't had HTML5, what we used to do was create different divs for all of these different things, right? But now with the help of HTML5, what we can do is we have dedicated elements in order to go around and format the page. So I'm just going to talk about formatting the page, right? So what we'll be talking about how we're going to go around and format the page in exactly the way we have just talked about. So if you're ready, we can start up. Shall we start talking about the formatting part? Formatting dekhe. How are we going to talk about formatting? Anybody who is feeling left behind, I'm just a little curious. Anybody who's feeling left behind, I'll just wait for a minute and actually want to understand if somebody is feeling left behind. Anyone who's feeling left behind? Guys, feel free. It's all for you, right? It's all, everything that's happening is because of you people. If you are feeling left behind, there is no purpose for this session then. Anyone who's feeling left behind, anyone. And if you're not, just give me a no. Okay, great. Continue. Chalo. So now what we'd be doing, we would be formatting up a page, right? What we'll be doing, we'll be formatting the page, right? So in order to go around and format the page, so rather what we can do, we can create up another document for the same. So let's call this document2.html, let's say. And in here, I'm just going to create up the boilerplate code, right? It's exact same thing that we have just seen. But in the body, now we'll be talking about formatting the page, right? Formatting the page. All right. Now, I'm actually not going to go around and give you that how you're going to go around and create divs and what you call this nav bar and stuff like that. We're going to do that in tomorrow's session, right? But as of now, I'm just going to tell you that how you're going to go around and structure up your web application, or how you're going to go around and format that, right? In tomorrow's session, most probably I'll be teaching you all the styling part, right? So in that sessions, we can go around and create this navigation bar, photos, and all of these different things, right? But as of now, we are only concerned about the structural part. So I'm just going to tell you that how you're going to go around and create the structure, right? So in HTML5, any of the formattings that you want to do onto your page basically falls around with 3 different sections onto your application, right? What are these 3 sections? Let's talk about that. The first section is called as the header section. This is what the other person was talking about, right? Somebody talked about in the chat section that we have skipped out the header part. Now keep that in mind. Heading is different. Header is different. Header is what we call this as a header section. It's a section altogether, right? Heading is just a heading, right? You can go around and create up your own headings, like something like that, right? What we are creating is a header part. What we are creating is the header part. And this header would be containing, let's say, the navigation bar for you people. So in HTML5, you have a provision of actually going around and creating navigation bar for your own self. But how we are going to go around and create this navigation bar, we'll talk about this in a little second when I'll come back to a few of the other elements that I've skipped out as of now, right? But you can go around and create the navigation bar in the header section. So this header would be containing the header part, which we have just discussed as of now, which would be this part, this particular part. This is what you're calling this as a header. So in HTML5, you have a dedicated tag, which you call this as a header, right? This is the header part. What does navigation bar do? Great question. What does the navigation bar do? Great. I thought you would be having a little knowledge about that for a little second. This is called as a navigation bar. Navigation bar means wherein you want to showcase all the different pages you can go around and visit onto your own application. For example, I am right now at some of the courses wala part, right? So I can go around to data structures, right? If I like data structures, I can go to data structures. If I like C, C++, I can go to C++. You're trying to navigate your user to in different sections of your application. This is called as navigation bar, where you're navigating your user that, hey, user, you know what? You can go to C++, you can go to Java, you can go to Python. This whole section, this whole particular, if I could, go around and annotate this whole section, this particular section, this whole section, this is what I'm calling this as header. This is my header. And in the header, what I want this as a navigation bar, this particular part, this particular region, just starting from here and ending at here, this is what you're calling this as navigation bar. This is your whole header. This whole section is your header. And in this is your navigation bar. This particular thing is your navigation bar, right? So whatever details, whatever things that you can showcase onto your user, that is going to go around onto the navigation bar. Kiran, I hope this makes sense, right? So this whole section is your header. Yeah, so the logo and all of these things come inside of the header, and navigation bar is one of the part of your headers. Keep that in mind. So that is what I've done. Yeah, so the navigation bar plays a very, very important role in order to make your user engaged to your application, so that you can know that these are the different things that you can go around and explore in your application, right? We'll talk about that how you're going to go around and create that. Just wait for a little second for that, right? So we have a header, right? This is the header section, and in the header section, it could contain your navigation bar. Again, you can go around and create up your logo itself. You can go around and attach your logo, attach the logo, but we have not covered images as of now, so I'm just going to comment this out. So you can go around and attach your logo. You can create a navigation bar. You can do pretty much any of the formatting that you want. So this is one way. This is one section of the body or the whole web page. The second section comes into picture when you talk about something called as the main part. Now, if you remember, the main part is the part wherein all of your content of your web application goes, wherein you want to showcase something onto your web application. The main thing, as you could see out here, the main structural part that you're seeing in between, wherein you're reading all of these things in middle of this is called as the main part, wherein all the content of your application would be rendered out here, right? And at the end, what you do is go around and create something called as the footer tag, the footer section, right? So in here, you'd be having your footers, right? This is your footer part. This is your footer part. In here, you'll go around and create the copyrights, contact us kind of like situations and stuff like that. Okay? Yahan tak theek hai? I hope these three sections make sense to everybody. Header section, main section, and the footer section, right? How we're gonna go around and do a little stuff around this, we'll talk about that in tomorrow's session when we'll come to the styling part, right? But as of now, keep that in mind. What you're doing, you're taking up your whole document, you're dividing into different sections, and these sections typically are of three types. First is header, second is main, third is footer, right? This is a very basic layout that you'll generally will go around and see onto n number of applications. They use the same layout, right? Now, in the main part, this is very interesting part. Now, whatever you're doing, leave it for a little second and concentrate onto this main part. This main part, again, is going around and could be disintegrated into any number of sections, right? How do we do that? Now, let's assume that let's suppose we want to create a blog post application kind of like a situation, right? You want to create blog, right? You want to create your own blogs. What do you do in blogs? What do? You create n number of articles, right? It could be article 1, article 2, article 3, and so on and so forth. This is what you're creating up in the blog post application, right? Same is the case with main as well, right? What you do, whatever main content that you would be having, for example, if you talk about this part, I can completely could see that from here, from C++ till here, I can call this that this is going to be my one article in my main page. Similarly, I want to start with a new heading. So I can come here and say that from here till here, it's going to be the another article of my section, which is the main part. And at the end, I can go around and give multiple other parts of the section as well. Can you see this? What I'm trying to explain you here is that if you have the main part, what you are depicting in this, what you can do is create internal sections within this as well. Section 1, section 2, section 3, and so on and so forth. 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so forth. I hope this is making sense what I'm trying to explain you. Though this is the main part, but again, you can go around and disintegrate this. You can have a heading 1, then heading 2, heading 3, and you can go around and depict n number of things inside this as well. Same is the case, you could go around and do this in the code as well, right? What do? We create n number of articles for the same, right? So this is going to be the article number 1, the section number 1. Similarly, there is going to be article number 2. Similarly, there is going to be article number 3, and so on and so forth, right? So this is in the main part. This is section number 1. This is section number 2. This is section number 3, right? Right? And in this article itself, you can go around and make another sections as well, which you call this as sections. Don't get confused, huh? Don't get confused. In the article as well, you can create different sections. For example, if let's suppose you're creating a blog post and this is blog number 1, this is blog number 1. There could be, what is the difference between section tag and article tag? That's what I'm telling you. Listen to me, right? If let's suppose if you want to go around and create a blog post kind of like an application, you would refer one blog to one article. One blog is going to be one article. Now that blog itself could contain n number of metadata. For example, that blog could have a heading, that blog could have a body, that blog could have a footer or stuff like that. I hope this is making sense. People, is it making sense? So in the article itself, you can go around and create n number of sections for your own self, right? Sahi hai? Okay. So you can go around and create sections. Similarly, if I copy this out, you can go around and create sections inside this article. You can go around and create sections in this articles as well, right? So this is how you would be going around and formatting up your whole web page. If you're good till here, just give me a yes. We'll move ahead. Formatting समझ आया? Formatting हम कैसे करते हैं HTML में, right? So in the formatting part, we have a header part. Then in the header part, then we have a main part, and from the main part, then we go to the footer part. ठीक है? सही है? बढ़िया है? Great. Okay, one thing more, whatever you're writing in the chat section, now, I'll highly recommend you do it publicly, because I want everybody to see whatever your doubts are going to be. Keep it public, right? Keep it public. Mohammed, keep even keep this as public. That's completely fine. Right, great. All right then. So आगे चल सकते हैं. आगे चल सकते हैं. Shall we move ahead? आगे चलें? All right, great. Mohammed, I told you, जो भी बोल रहे हो publicly बोलो. This is a DM, right? So go around and select the name as to for everyone and then do it. ठीक है? चलो, nice. All right then. कुछ interesting करें? Shall we do a little stuff interesting? थोड़ा interesting वाला काम करते हैं ना? This is like so much boring, है ना? Let's talk about a few things that a lot of people have no idea about. How many of you worked on the video tag? Has anybody worked on video tag? Anyone has worked on video tags? चलो वीडियो वाला काम करते हैं पहले फटाफट से, because that's the left off part. ठीक है? So first let's go around and complete that. And oh, इसको ना मैं एक बार render करके मैं आप लोगों को दिखा देता हूँ. So you'll get a little idea that how we are. It's fine. We'll talk how we're gonna do that. ठीक है? So आप लोगों को थोड़ा सा I'll give you an idea about iframes, but we do not have a lot of times to go around and complete everything about iframes and stuff like that. Sometimes if we'll get time, we can start discussing about onto iframes, but as of now we do not have a lot of discussions on to do. But I'll give you a little basic idea about iframes and stuff like that. Chalo. So what we're going to do? You'll get the recordings. Don't worry, Komal. Don't worry. You'll get the recordings. चलो. So what was I showing you? I forgot. I wanted to render this application. Huh? So let's go around and render this out. Let's go to 5500 slash what's the name? It's called as document2.html. Let's go around and render this real quick. Now, if you'll go around and inspect this page, right? ये क्या हो रहा है इसमें? Live reloading without body or head tag. What happened? 55. Oh, the name. I'm sharing the screen already. Don't worry, don't worry. ये रेंडर क्यों नहीं कर रहा है ऐसा? I've kept it everything right. तो ये font इतना बड़ा है ना, I cannot see the whole code. Oh, I didn't save this. है ना? चलो, इसको देखो जरा फटाफट. So if you'll go around and inspect the page, so in the inspection you will find out, you will figure out that if you talk about this header, right? So this is the header. In here you will find out main, and in the mail you could see that there are 3 articles, right? So this is article 1, this is article 2, this is article 3. Okay, right? And then at the end we have this footer wala part, right? चलो, वैसे इसकी requirement थी नहीं, but I just showed you of this. चलो, let's go to document number 3. Let's go around and create one more document. Let's call this document3.html. All right. Do you guys up on GitHub? Are you guys up on GitHub? No. If you're not, I highly recommend you as a developer, you should go around and create your own GitHub accounts and stuff like that. And the reason is that what would happen is that I'll be pushing all of this code. If you'd be needing, I'm going to push all this code on GitHub. You can go around and fork from my repository, right? Okay. Chalo. Now let's come back to the video wala part. Let's do a little stuff interesting. Okay, let's come to the video wala part. A lot of people don't talk about videos. I don't know why, but a lot of people don't. So let's go around and do something on video, right? It would be a little interesting. Okay. Chalo. What am I going to do? I have a video. You definitely should. Anna? So I have this video. This is kind of like what you call this as a tutorial video, right? Tutorial and Angular stuff like that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to put this video in my folder, the TFA folder that I have. Now you'd see I have this video out here. This is the video that I have, right? 006, editing the first step and stuff like that. Chalo, okay? So now if you'll open up the editor, you'll see that you have this video out here, right? So now this, no. Brackets? No. It does. Every of the major web browsers does support videos and stuff, right? So you could see that I have included this video, which is this particular video, in my class path. I shouldn't call this class path, rather in my own directory. What is this directory? This directory is TFA directory, right? So this is a part of my application now. Now, what do I want to do? I want to include this in my web page. This is my problem statement. The problem statement is quite simple. So I'll just quickly go to navigate to localhost / document3.html. Cannot get. Why cannot get? MNET लिख दिया मैंने उसमें. अरे यार, let's go around and rename this. MENT. सही है, चलो. So in this page, we will be rendering up this video. ठीक है, अब इसको जरा ध्यान से देखना. Lot of people does get confused in little here and there. चलो. So in case of what you call this as HTML5, you can go around. Oh, shortcut चाहिए boilerplate का. बहुत easy है. ठीक है. if let's suppose you have created up this HTML, so what you can do, you can just put this exclamation sign and press tab. That's it. Chal jayega. है ना? Exclamation and put a tab. It will give you a boilerplate code, right? Now, what do we want to do? We want to render this video that we have included in our directory, this video, and we want to showcase it into this frame that I have or the web page that I have, right? So this is what we'll be doing. This most probably would be completing by 7. Most probably it will take around like 7 because we started up a little late. So this would go around till 7, something like that. Chalo, start kare. Start kare. Other people, shall we start? If you're ready, I'm ready. We can start. Chalo. Now, let's suppose I want to render that video that I've just included in my directory. I want to go around and include that in my web page. I want to go around and render onto my web page. Typically, HTML5 gives you a lot of handy stuff when you go around and talk about video. It gives you a lot of handy stuff. And what the handy stuff is, the video element, video HTML element. You could say that it's a video HTML element wherein you need to pass on the source of the video, right? And what's the best thing that I like about VS Code is that if you just press /, it will give you all the drop down menu of the things that you want to go around and select. So what I'm going to select is this video, this MP4 video, right? Sahi hai? So if I save this, you would see that this video is getting rendered. If you just have a look on this video is getting rendered. Everyone can see this video. It's fine. It's fine. Can you see that this video is getting rendered? But even if I click onto this video is not going to do anything for me. Can you see this? This is just giving me the video format, that how my video is going to look like. It's just a static video, but this video is not going to play. Why, you ask? Because it takes something called as an attribute. What is an attribute? Let's talk about attribute. Attribute is the functionality that you want to give to your HTML element. In this case, you need to pass on an attribute, which you call this as controls. If you could just see out here, there's something called as controls. The moment you'll write controls and save this, you'd see that it will give you an option for playing the video. Right? So you can now actually go around and play the video. Right? So if I click onto this play button, you could actually see that I can go around and navigate onto all of these things. And you could see that this video is getting rendered. Can you see this? Right? Now, there are a few other things that you can, again, go around and do with this video. Right? Let's talk about that for a little second. So what we can do is let's say you want to add, do I have any image for that? चलो एक ना photo download कर लेते हैं. Oh, repeat when we use slash. Oh, ये source वाला slash you're asking, Komal? ये source में जो मैंने slash किया, that's what you're asking? Source में, which I did. Okay. So in VS Code, what happens is source typically means that where should I pick the video from? Sources means where will I find the video? What happens is, as you could see, that this video is already in my present working directory that I'm working on, wherein I have this document 3, right? They are on the same folder. So what happens is the moment you press this /, it will give you all the files and folders in that folder itself on what you're working, right? And this drop down menu, you can go around and select pretty much anything that you want from this drop down menu. And what I want is this video. I can just click enter and it will automatically put the name for me out there in the source folder, right? And if you don't write controls, that what I said, if you don't write controls, save this is not going to play. But the moment you will be writing controls and save this will start to play. There would be an option for play. Yeah, correct. If you want to enter onto this present working directory, just put a /. It will give you a drop down menu out of where you can go around and select for whatever files or folders or text files or any files, or you want to go around and navigate onto a different folder which is inside that directory. That is also something that you can do. We'll talk about that in a little second. Right? सही है? यहाँ तक ठीक है? आगे चलें? Should we move ahead? Let's talk about few of the other functionalities also that you can go around and use in the video tag. Shall we? Shall we do that? कुछ और features देखते हैं इस video tag के. What could be the other features? The other features is that if you might have gone around with YouTube, there is a what you call this as um, a poster, right? What you see as what you call this, actually not getting the right word. Um, what you paste like as a photo that you see like before actually going around and playing the video. What do you call this as? Thumbnail. Thumbnail. So you can actually go around and put a thumbnail in the case if you want the video, right? So as you can see out here, this thumbnail is looking horribly ugly, right? If you'll just have a look on this would be the starting thumbnail. You can actually go around and put a thumbnail if you want in case of your video. For that, what you need to do is just click on poster, and in this poster for whatever JPG file that you want. I do not have any right now. I can go around and download one for real quick. Just gonna go to just right gonna write sample image, and going to, let's say, sample image on, let's say, computer science, array on computers. Right, so this would be the sample image. I'm just gonna go around, download this image, allow. What I'm gonna do is put this in the folder. What do you mean by UTF-8? We'll come to this. And let's paste this inside the folder, right? And in here, what you can do is, if I'll go back, what we can do is put this little format out here again. You could see that I have iu.jpg, save. You'd see that this would be the thumbnail. Everyone can see this. This would be the thumbnail. So you can go around and play with the thumbnail part as well. Oh, sorry. The thumbnail part as well, right? There is another option. If you want, the moment you load this page, it should automatically play. There is an option for auto play as well. So the moment you'll save this, you'll see that it will automatically will start to play.
I opened the project we created in the last lecture.
Right. So this is how we can go around and do and deal with all of the other things as well. I hope the video wala part is clear to everybody. Is the video wala part good? So yeah, we'll talk about character side just for a little second. So this is how we actually go around and render video. I'll just tell you one more thing, very interesting thing, which a lot of developers don't know, or I shouldn't call them developers, rather I should call them for the people who are, okay, yeah, one more thing. You can go around and adjust the width as well, right? Let's suppose if I give it 300 pixels, save, you'll see that it will shrink for a little second, right?
I opened the project we created in the last lecture.
Okay. So I should just actually remove autoplay, right? Save this. You'd see that it would shrink, right? Provide the link of the video. What video? Right, correct. Yeah, you can go around and write the text as well. You can go around and put a placeholder, right? Or you can just give a alt. So there is an option for writing alt as well. Sorry, just one second. There is an option for writing alt as well, just in case if it doesn't load. So we have an option for writing alt as well, right? You can go around and add that as well. It's exactly like the image tag. What is the meaning of UTF-8? Ruk jao, we'll talk about that. Ruk jao. Abhi we are talking completely different part. It's fine, Mohammed. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's completely fine. Chalo. I'll tell you. Okay, how many of you are interested in actually picking a YouTube video and adding it onto your web page? Do you want to have a look on that? Let's go to YouTube. Let's go to YouTube. Pick a video. Let's pick a video and add it into your web page. Shall we do that? That is something that you can totally do, right? So let's go to YouTube. I have already opened up this part, right? If you click onto the share button, you find something of an option called as embedded. Everyone can see this embedded. So if you have a video open, you can go to share and click on this embedded. And if you click onto this, you can actually go around and pick this up as a code, right? And you can actually import this code into your application and save this. You'll see that you can actually play a YouTube video on your application. Again, you can go around and adjust the width, right? So let me go around here and just put a width out here. So here also the width, I'm just going to give this width as, let's say, 300 pixels. Save. So it will shrink a little bit, right? So this is shrunk now. So you can go around, and the best part about including the YouTube videos on your application is that, you know, it gives you all the controllers. If I could like go to here and just oh, अच्छा, so you can go around and do that as well, right? इन्होंने अभी बंद कर दिया, I believe, iframe करना. चलो, anyways, never mind. But you can just click onto this video and go to YouTube, right? So that is something that you can do. You can include YouTube videos on your application itself. So if you just have a look out here, you can just click onto the share button. From the share button, you can go to embedded. Embedded will give you a automatically generated code. You can just copy this out, paste it in your document. That will do good to you people as well, right? Make sense? सही है? चले आगे. Repeat. Repeat करूं क्या? किरण, समीक्षा, should I tell it to you once more? बताऊं? कुछ नहीं करना है. It's very simple. अच्छा, अभी आ गया समझ में. चलो, nice, great. All right then. All right. चलो. So this is the little part that we have done. कुछ और चीजें देखना चाहोगे? कुछ और बेसिक कमांड्स देख लेते हैं. कुछ और basic commands देखें. For the people who could stay, let's have a look on few other commands as well, right? Few basic other tags, few basic other elements that I would highly recommend you should have a look on. Okay, chalo, let's talk about those. Let's talk about links. Let's start with links part. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go back to index, right? And let's start with links and images. Now, in order to understand links, what you actually need to understand is when we talk about links, there are three types of links which are available and what you could use in HTML, right? What are these three kinds of links? Let's talk about that. There are three links. First is going to be absolute link, right? What is the meaning of that? We'll talk about that. The second one is called as relative link. And the third one is called as root relative link. Root relative link. Let's talk about this. What is absolute link? Let's talk about that. An absolute link is a link which is a third party link. Third party link means this is not a part of your application. That means this functionality or this web page does not belong to your application. This is a third party link. For example, if you want to make your user go to Google, so Google is definitely not a part of your application, right? But still you want to make your user go to Google, right? So Google is what? A third party link. These links are called as absolute link, right? Then another comes as relative link. Relative links are the links in which you try to link another file, and this another file is a part of your application. ये part है आपके application का, right? उसको हम quickly में code करके देख लेते हैं. So if you talk about links, links के लिए you can use something of a tag which you call this as an anchor tag. So anchor tag has an attribute. This is called as attribute, right? So attribute does what? Attribute just tells you what the functionality of this anchor tag is going to be. So in this href attribute, what you do is pass the link that you want to go around to, right? So let's suppose if I just write out here HTTPS, don't forget to write HTTPS, huh? HTTPS, let's go to www.google.com, right? And I'll just come here and say, click here to go to Google. Save. And if you have a look out here in this case, you'll see that if you'll click on this button, you'll be navigated to Google, right? But there is a problem with this approach. Can somebody tell me what would be the problem? In case of your absolute link, there is a problem. Anyone? This absolute link has a problem. Anyone? Don't worry, even if it's wrong, it's fine. But do participate. What do you think? There is a problem. Yes. Yes. It goes to another page which is not a part of our application, but it opens in the same tab. Do you want your user to leave your application and go to some other any application? As a consumer, as a person who's in charge of the application, Would you need that person to leave your application and go to some other application? Definitely not, right? So in this case, you can again add an attribute, which you call this as target attribute. And in this target, you can keep it as blank. The moment you write target is equals to blank, what will happen is every time you'll be clicking onto this link, it will open to a new tab, right? And your user is still in your application, but it's also accessing the third-party application that you've just mentioned in your application, right? So yeah, similarly, we can just come here. So this was what you call this as absolute link. Let me write this absolute link. So yeah, and let me comment this out. Now we'll be discussing on relative link. What is a relative link? So a relative link is when you want to link a page, which is a document of a part of your application. For example, document 1 and document 2. As you could see, I have document 2 and document 3 a part of my application. That is also something that I can do. It's exactly the same way. In the href, they are on the same folder. So what you can do is just put out here document 2, and I'm just going to write it out here. Click here to go to document. Save, right? And you'd see that if I click out here, I will go to my document 2, which does not contain anything. But did somebody realize, or did somebody try to analyze something? Did anyone analyze anything? Have a look on the page very carefully and try to analyze something. Anyone who could tell me that there is a problem with this approach? Anyone? There is a problem with the approach. Alignment, very good. Think about it. It's an inline element. It's an inline element. It's not like paragraphs or any of the other block level elements that we have seen. And this is how we actually create a navigation bar. Think about it. Think about it. Can we not actually go around, even if we go around and style this, can we not create a navigation bar using an anchor tag? Think about it. Because what we are doing is providing it a relative link, and that relative link is taking me from one web page to another web page. So I can just say that I can go around and create a navigation bar just by using plain anchor tags. Yes or no? Think about it. We'll do this in tomorrow's session when we'll be using CSS and stuff like that. But don't you think that this is a good approach of actually using anchor tags, something like this, because they're already in line and we can go around and style them up using CSS. We'll do that tomorrow, right? So what is the best approach? If I ask you, if somebody asks you that what would be the best approach if you want to go around and create a navigation bar? Well, the best approach is going to be use an anchor tag because they are inline elements and you would not need to worry about placing them one by one together, right? But in my case, I'm just going to create a break statement. Right? I'm just going to copy this out. And similarly, I'm just going to paste it in here as well. And similarly, I'm just going to mention the value of my document 3 as well. Just going to be this. So click here to go to the video section, let's say. Right? So if I click here, I'll go to the video section, right? And if I click here, I'll go to the documents 2 section in which I have not contained anything. But the last part is the most necessary part. The relative link. See, the relative link is a link to another document, which is a part of your application, which is a part of your directory, which is a part of your whole project. You could see document 2 and document 3. What you're trying to do, you're trying to link document 2 and document 3 to your index.html because that's the main page. If you have this main page, you should be able to go around and navigate your user to different parts and different sections of your application. Ketana, do you agree with me? Do you agree with me? When we are trying to link any file, any page, any text, anything for that matter, which is a part of your application, those links are called as relative link. For example, you could see that this document2.html belongs to our application. That is why we are using this relative link. This is a relative link. This is a absolute link. We good? Aage chalein? Shall we move ahead? Shall we move ahead? Right? The last part that I want to draw your concern towards is the root relative link, the third part, the root relative link. So in the root relative link, there is a provision of making your page go back to the home page, and this home page is going to be the index.html, and we can just come here and say click here to go to the home page. So if I save this, and if I now go to video section, you would find a link to go to, or you know what, I'm just gonna put a breakout here. Save, right? So you'll get a link to go back to the home page. So if I click to the video section, I can come back to this home page, right? This page, which is taking you back to your home page, is called as root relative link. This is called as root relative link. सही है? Are we good? यहाँ तक किसी को कोई problem है तो please ask your doubts. If you're good, give me a yes. We'll move ahead. एक दो चीजें और डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, then we'll end up with the session. Just 2 things more and then we'll end up with the session. सही है? चलें आगे. Other people waiting for your response. चलो, nice, great. Just 2 more things and then we'll end up with the session. Let's go back to index.html, right? And what I'm gonna do is just gonna go around and create a horizontal rule for myself. Okay. Now let's start to talk about. चलो, let's start to talk about lists. ठीक है? Lists के बारे में बात करते हैं. When you talk about lists, right? Lists in HTML, you can go around and create lists, right? These lists are of 2 types. Yeah, we can write pretty much anything that you want. You can write HR, you can write HR slash. Both will do the same job. But this is programmatically correct. Keep that in mind. This is a correct way of using HR. Yeah, this is the correct way of using HR. Okay, yeah, a lot of people know about lists. So there are 2 types of lists, which again, I should not say 2 types of, rather it's 3 types of lists, but we are not going to go to the third part because it will take a lot of time, right? So if we'd be meeting sometime other time, then we'll go around and talk about that. But as of now, let's keep it 2. There typically are 3 types of lists. So ordered and unordered, right? So in unordered, you do not want the ordering, you do not want the numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, right? All you need is just bullet points. So what you can do is just create unordered list, and inside this unordered list, you can create list items. Let's say I just create this list item 1, right? I'll just copy this out. List item 2, list item 3, list item 4, list item 5. Let's say 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? So if you'll save this, you'll see that you can actually go around and create list items, right? And these are unordered. You could see that these are just bullet points, right? Then what you can do is you can also create ordered list as well, right? So in case of ordered list, it's called an ordered list, that is OL, and you can go around and do the same job, right? If you copy this out, paste this in, save, you'll find that this would be an ordered list, right? You could see that this is an ordered list. But the default, the major part that you actually need to see here, the default is always going to start from number 1. The default is always going to start from number 1. But we can change this as well. We can come here and say type, and we can mention the type. Here we have multiple types, right? We can start with capital A, save, it will start from capital A. We can mention starting from small I, Roman numerals, it will start with no Roman numerals, right? You can change the type as from small A, it will start from small A, right? So you can go around and change whatever that you like. If you want to change the type of the order list, that is also something that you can totally do, right? So here I'm just going to say H3. So I'm just going to call this unordered. Oh, sorry, this is ordered list, right? Ordered list. And this is your unordered list. चलो, nice, है ना? एक लास्ट चीज और डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, which is very very important. then we'll end up with the session. वैसे एक चीज मैंने और छोड़ दी है tables, but tables most probably will cover out in tomorrow's session because उसमें styling की जरूरत पड़ती है. Yeah, the third type is description list, but let's not go there, है ना? Third type is description list. It's very easy. You can go around and create description list by using a tag called as DL in HTML. So you can go around and do that as well, right? So description list के बारे में अगर कल time मिलेगा, you can ask me. I can give you an idea about description list. और कल हम लोग tables देख लेंगे. अभी एक बहुत important काम देखते हैं, right? One last little thing that we'll see and then we'll end up with the session. Those are forms and forms element. Forms and form element. ठीक है, चलो रेडी है? Are you guys ready? So what I'm going to do is create a div out here and going to this style is equals to as let's say 500 pixels. ठीक है, यहाँ पे आपको दिखने लग जाएगा. ये अभी स्टाइल वाइल ये सारा हम लोग काम कल करेंगे, बट अभी जस्ट बिकॉज आई कुड स्क्रॉल दिस आउट आई हैव डन दिस. चलो नाइस, लेट्स डू दिस. रेडी है? फॉर्म एलिमेंट्स को थोड़ा ध्यान से देखना बिकॉज दिस कुड बी अ लिटिल इंटरेस्टिंग पार्ट बिकॉज यू एवरी एप्लीकेशन डज हैज अ साइन अप पेज एंड अ लॉगिन पेज. Divided. Oh, this div, we'll talk about this div tomorrow. This means div, this is a division. We'll talk about divs and spans tomorrow. Aaj we are shorting up on time, right? So this is called as div. These are called as divisions and spans. We'll talk about divisions and spans in a little second. It's just a container, nothing else. When we'll do the styling and all, we'll talk about that. But abhi basic elements dekh lete hain. So shall we start with forms and form elements? Let's create up a form, right? Let's go around and create up a form, a very beautiful form. You can go around and create that, and let's go around and do that. Shall we? Dekhe? If you're ready, I'm ready. Quickly, I'm waiting for your response then. Chalo, nice. All right then. So let's go around and create a form. A form is basically is exactly the same thing that you're trying to understand from the form as the names like form. A form is nothing but a way of accepting inputs from the user. At the end of the day, when you'll be creating up an application, you'll go around and create forms for yourselves, right? In those forms, you'll be expecting your user to give you an input, and at the end, when we'll be designing a full stack development, when we'll be starting up with the batch and stuff like that, then we'll be creating up a backend itself, right? In that backend, we'll be having a full-fledged database, right? So what you're going to do, you'll pull this data from the front end and you'll push that inside up your database and do something like that. In short terms, what I'm trying to explain you is form and form elements basically helps you to get the data from the user, right? These forms would be containing few different labels, few different input types, and depending upon those input types, you can go around and do a lot of things, right? Let's go around and do that. Let's say you want to go around and create up a sign up page, right? So for that, what we'd be doing, we'll be creating up a form, right? The moment I wrote form, you could see that my HTML or you could say VS Code emitted a attribute called as action. This is very important. Open up your ears and listen to me very carefully. This is a thing that I've seen generally in the interviews being asked, that what is an action attribute in a form? Keep that in mind. As I just told you, you'll be doing a lot of sign up and login stuff when you'll be creating up forms, right? Every form, listen to me very carefully, Hannah. Every form that we talk about will be submitted to a backend, no matter what. No matter what, it will be submitted somewhere at some backend. As of now, I'm just gonna call this service.php, right? So when I'll click onto the submit button, this form will be picked up by the server and would be posted out onto your database. This is default action of every form. Every form goes somewhere, gets into action, and gets submitted somewhere. This is for every form. Keep that in mind, right? So this is an action. Yeah, it will be saved in the database every time you'll be creating up a form. Now, how do we create up a form? That's the main question, right? In the form, what you'd be having, you have to call something of which you call this as, you'll be creating labels, right? Labels would be telling you, there is a thing called as label. So these labels would be telling you label. So these labels would be telling you that what is this label for. Let's suppose I'm expecting my user for, let's say, first name. And then what I'm going to do, I am going to give it a small little area where he's going to write small little area. Keep that in mind. I'm calling this as a small little area. So in this small little area, what I'm going to do, I'm going to expect a text type of an input. So what do? We write something called as input, right? And we mention the type. And in here, in my case, it's going to be input type text, right? The moment I'll save this, you'll see you get a form kind of like an appearance out here, which says, hey, what is your first name? And the moment you'll start writing up your first name, you can go around and write your first name. Similarly, what I'm going to do is create a little break, right? Or rather, just one break would do good. And I'll be expecting a last name as well from my user as well, right? So let's say I call this last name. Save. Let me go around and create another break for me, right? So this looks a little better, right? Now, let's say we have captured the first name and the last name. Let's suppose now I want users. Let's call this email ID, right? So in case of your email ID, you are going to create the exact same thing, a label and an input type. And this label is going to be email, let's say, email. But now we cannot go around and keep this type as text. Why? Because we'll be expecting the user to give us the email in the form of username @hostname.com. Do you agree with me? Because every email would have to have a same notation, right? Username @hostname.com. Yeah. Yeah. That means you have to validate your user that whether or not that user is writing the right email address or not. For that, HTML5 came up with a type called as email, and which does a default validation, right? So these are called as default validation. This would be containing, the moment I clicked onto this, you could see that it has started showing up my details out here, my email ID. That means my browser is intelligent enough to know that, okay, the input type is going to be email. That means this form is expecting, this field is expecting up an email, right? Which will be taking up few default validations from you people, right? Next thing is, let's suppose we are expecting up a password, to write up a password, right? Password. And now in here, we can have a input type as text, but some other people or some other person who's sitting right next to you could see up your password. Don't you agree? Don't you agree? @Gmail, any of the host name that you have. It could be a Gmail, it could be iCloud, it could be a Hotmail, it could be any email for that matter, right? So we're talking about password. So in case of password, the input type here you cannot keep as text, right? You cannot keep as text. So HTML5 has also given us a few styling part for the password, which you call this as password. And if you'll save this, and if you'll actually try to write password, you will not be able to see any password that I'll be typing. Can you see this? You'll see that the password, you cannot see the password for whatever passwords that I'm writing out here, right? Then I'll be telling you one or two more input type, and then we'll end up with the session. Okay, just yeah. You can go around and put a placeholders as well, right? So you can just go here and say placeholder just to tell your user what I'm expecting. So placeholder is just going to hold a place until and unless you do not give any value. So it could be, let's say, first name, right? Save this. It would be little grayed out, right? So let's call this last name. And I'm just gonna copy this whole stuff up and put this on everything else, right? So you can go around and do pretty much anything with HTML. You know, HTML is like very popular these days. Like a lot of people, a lot of companies are actually looking for, you know, full stack developers and stuff like that. Yeah, so all the validation is basically done with the JavaScript part. When we'll do JavaScript, then you'll actually will understand what I'm trying to explain you. The validation could be done using the uh, JavaScript. We'll do that. Don't worry. So yeah. Now I'm just going to give you one or two more input fields. You can go on to Google and learn more about these input types, but I'm just going to tell you one or two more input types, right? Let's suppose what I'm expecting here is, let's suppose a message from the user or feedbacks from the user, right? So I'm just going to say any feedback, So if you have any feedback, you can have the input type. Now in here, what could I do? Just think about it. If I keep this input type as text, the area for writing the feedback is going to be very, very small, right? Don't you agree? That the input type here is going to be a small little area in which whole of the feedback is not going to look little pretty, right? It's not. So in case of rather than using input type, we use something called as text area. And if you'll save this, you'll see that what you get is a resizable text area wherein you can go around and resize this, right? You can go around and resize. Yeah, you can do all of these things. We'll talk about that when we'll be doing the validation and stuff like that. But I'm just telling you how you're going to design a very basic form, right? ठीक है. अब इतना तो करने लगेंगे तो फिर forms के लिए I can take a whole day in order to just explain you what a form is and stuff like that. Yeah, it would give you a multiple line use of the text area and stuff like that. ठीक है. आपके पास और भी बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. For example, if you could use input and you could use a type as what you call this as range, you can also use range. If you save this, it gives you a little range, a kind of like a slider you can go around and use as a slider and stuff like that. For address and for stuff like this, you can go around and do that, right? So yeah, at the end, you would be having something called as a submit button. So you can go around and create a button and you can just call it submit me. Or rather than doing it just like this, you can go around and create an input type itself. You can just say input type submit, right? So if you'll save this, it will give you a, now just see this, when you create this form and the moment you click on the submit button, you'll see that it will go to /service.php. Everyone can see this. Though this doesn't exist, it will give you an error that you cannot get anything from service.php. But you can see that the moment you clicked on the submit button, it will, redirect you to service.php. Though the service.php does not exist for this way, right? So you can use input type as well. You can use a button. Anything would do good to you, right? Because JavaScript can handle pretty much both of these things, either an input type or a button. Both of these things could be used. So yeah, I hope, or what I'm going to do before we end up with the session and you ask me a lot of doubts, what I'm going to do, should I put it on my GitHub? Do you need all of these codes? If you need it, then only I'm going to push this up. Do you need the code and all of these things? Do you need code? Quickly. Chahiye? Chalo. So what I'm going to do is just put it up on my GitHub real quick. Or you know what I'm going to do? Let's not waste time right now. I'll push this up on my GitHub and I'll ask my team to go around and redirect up to you people. Will that work? Will that work? Chalega? So I'll ask my team. They will forward you out with the link. I'll post it up. I'll show you the code. There's nothing to say please about. Okay? Chalo. Nice. So, chalo. If you are having any doubts related to the course that we have to offer or anything that you might have missed out from the session, feel free to push any doubts that you have from the session. I'll be more than happy to cater onto your doubts. Now is the good time to ask your doubts. No, it does not make any changes. But what we say is that it's technically correct to write hr/, right? So this would be telling you that this is a self-closing tag, right? Because opening tag is written as hr rather than just by telling that it's going to be a self-closing tag, you just write it hr/, right? So it's just a way of writing stuff. Any other doubts? Any other doubts that we have? Any other doubts? Quickly. If you have any other doubts, push that doubt in the chat section and I'll answer them up. Okay. Yeah, professionals write it this way only, right? Yeah, you can call them empty tag, you can call them self-closing tag, you can call them self-ending tag, they have multiple n number of names for the same, right? Required attribute is used at the time when you want to be very, very particular about that this is the thing that I'd be needing, because we have created up a backend in, let's say, MySQL, and there is a dedicated column for the same. So then you restrict your user that no, you should have to fill this up, right? So what do you do? Where have I've written placeholder as whatever placeholder that I've written, you can also write it required out there, just to tell your user that, hey, you cannot go further until and unless you do not post any of the things which are being asked in here. Confused about BR tag. What is to be confused about that? Okay, one thing more. I'm just going to push the Facebook wala group and LinkedIn wala group, just in case if you want to go around and follow. One thing more, yeah, you can go around, even if you'll be having doubts in the evening as well. What you can do is just go around onto my LinkedIn. You can catch up me on my personal LinkedIn as well, right? You can add me up, you can connect up with me if that's fine with you people, right? This is my LinkedIn. By the way, yeah, I'm Arun. I'm telling you at the end of the session. By the way, I'm Arun. I work as a senior subject matter expert at Apple, right? And I'm also working with Technology for All, right? So if you want to go around and hit me up on LinkedIn, if you'd be having any doubts, you can go around and ask your doubts. I've put up the Facebook group and the LinkedIn link as well into your chat section. You can go around and have a look on that. If you'd be having any doubts related to maybe the course, maybe whatever we have talked about in this session, or you just need a little career guidance or whatever things that could be, if you want to go around and engage with me, that's completely fine from my side, right? You can go around and hit me up on my LinkedIn. Great. So any other doubts? If you have any other doubts, put your doubts in the chat section. I'll be more than happy to assist you up, and then we'll end up with the session. Quickly. And if you're good to go, if you do not have any doubts, just give me a big yes so that we can end up with the session quickly. Let's do that. If you don't have doubts, if you're good, just give me a big yes. We'll end up with the session. So yeah. Oh, I can do one thing. I'll just push my name on, just in case if somebody would be interested in connecting up with me on LinkedIn. So thank you so much. It was lovely having you people up around. So this would be the name. You can go around. This is my name. Yeah, you too. And you can go around and follow me up on LinkedIn, or we can connect. We can have a small little discussion of whatever things that you want. Recording session, it would be done by tomorrow, right? It would be done by tomorrow. Don't worry about that. Okay. Most probably I'll ask the team to do it like today itself, right? But if it's not done today, we'll do it by tomorrow for sure, right? And you'll get the confirmation from your end as well. So shall we end up with the session then? Can we end up? Just a quick yes, and then we'll end up. Hana? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right? Chalo, it was lovely having you people around. Don't forget to join in tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be covering out all the styling CSS wala part. Hai na? Chalo. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Take care. And if you'd be having any doubts, you can ping me up on any time. Even 12 a.m. would do good to you. Yeah, use live server for that. Use live server. That would do good to you. Right? You can code along. You can see the output just right in front of you people. Right? So yeah, chalo. Thank you guys. Bye bye. See you tomorrow. Huh? Okay, sure. Tomorrow का भी आपको सब मिल जाएगा. Don't worry. ठीक है? Link you'll get everything tomorrow itself. चलो. Bye bye guys.